Hey, you. Welcome back to the channel. And guys, today we're going to review Black Mirror Season 1, Episode 2, 15 Million Merits. And guys, coming off the first episode of Black Mirror, National Anthem, this is, or this episode rather is more along the lines of kind of what I expected Black Mirror to be like. This kind of tells this story from a different world from what we have here. And I knew these were all going to be their own self-contained individual episodes, so we would do various things would go back and forth. But I think the my problems with the first episode was that it just seemed to me like a very plausible possible episode. Like there was nothing bizarre, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing alternate from our reality. And I thought the story he told was just pretty much, something that could have actually happened. As crazy as it was, it wasn't. But anyway, this episode I really did enjoy. It was kind of how my thought process would have seen a show like this coming in, and of course, if you recognize this actor in the shot, that is because that is Mr. Daniel Kaluuya from the Get Out movie that came out last year. Was very popular. Was I believe it was like it had a real high score on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not sure if it was number one in the country. It probably was for a great deal of time, but kind of changed the a bit of the horror genre. It's told from a horror perspective, unlike we've ever seen before. So, just a great film. I did do a review on it on the channel here, so be sure and check that out. But guys, let's talk about this episode, which I thought was a great episode. What Black Mirror has been able to achieve, it seems, is it is able to, in a very interesting way, grab you emotionally. And in a disturbing way too, and so it's been able to do that quite well, and I think that's what's the emotional grasp it holds on you. This is something that the show is good at doing, and what is paramount to achieving this is good actors. And what I notice about Black Mirror is that they have done a really good job of carefully and meticulously selecting the proper actors to play these parts. And they really pull you in. You're really convinced that what is going on in these kind of alternate reality worlds, you really believe it's real and actual, and very relative to our world. Even though it's these very in this particular episode, it could appear very strange type world, yet very familiar. And so that is just genius how they managed to do that. Within this episode. But this is a type of dystopia world that's been created. The thing that first came to mind when I seen the opening, with the character here by the name of Bing, who's played by Daniel Kaluuya, going to the exercise bikes, is immediately, uh, my mind switched to they're riding these bikes to create some type of energy. And that's because I've seen many dystopia films where they have, done things like this before. So that was, very familiar with me. This was actually done in a movie, book, Soylent Green. And, we get to see, with bike riding, just the power light, light the lights in the house, light bulb. You had to ride a bike to charge up the light bulb. But what was a little bit, what had my mind going a little bit was I seen these people riding these bikes. I'm like, just about how much energy can these bikes create? Because they're kind of, it's a lot of just like sophisticated electronics and machines that are being powered, and they're just riding these bikes. So I'm like, is this what's the significance of riding this bike? Is there a reason for it? So that came to mind. Also, what came to mind was what triggered that, I think, too, is because had not too long ago been watching a science fiction. I'm sorry, not science fiction. Was watching a scientific discovery type show where they wanted to create sidewalks, like say in a place like New York, that the kinetic energy as people walked along these sidewalks would create energy that could be distributed to smaller cities around the world, much smaller than New York, and that energy created in New York would be able to power these entire cities. And I say that's very interesting. So the idea of human power, using human energy in a normal sense, whether it's through exercise or through just basically moving about, those concepts of energies are energy sources that are really being explored. So that's why my mind switched to that. But now with the bikes, how practical is that? I would think it wouldn't be very practical unless there's something else was going on that I didn't know about. But that's the interesting thing about it too, because it's a lot of questions aren't answered. They live in these small boxes. Everyone seems to live in these small boxes where there is a screen in like a cube, and these screens project images of even though they're in these small contained spaces, they have like their screens and images, and they're within this box. And I don't know if that box is a metaphor, because what I found interesting about these two episodes I've seen of the Black Mirror series is they seem to be telling this story about technology. There's a lot of technology theme in these stories, a lot which seems to relate to the media, the internet, and throughout the episode, every few seconds these adult entertainment type ads keep popping up. And of course, the first thing comes to mind is, all of the adult themed material on the internet that you just can't avoid, that, you got to buy various pop-up blockers and things like that, and then they would actually have to take the money earned from their activities as they produce this energy, just to skip ads. And so that kind of made me think about social media sites like YouTube, and even going back to the first episode, there is a YouTube type reference there. But that made me think about how even here on YouTube, you have to, if you don't want to be bombarded with ads and watch ads, you can actually pay to skip ads. And so they would have to do this, or they'd have to, and then they were forced to watch. And I don't know if that was some type of metaphor. I'm not sure. I never quite understood why they were forced to watch these things. Maybe they're kind of forced to watch because whoever wants to promote this material is kind of like how we're forced to watch, right? The advertisements. So they're just like literally forced to watch, though. So I found that quite interesting. How that was done. But anyway, all we get to see is two functions kind of in the beginning being performed, and these two functions are either the bicycle riding, or like these type of janitorial duties where people wear these yellow suits and they clean up the floors. And the first thing came to mind when I saw that, how that was being carried out, was I thought about classes of people in society. And so I was under the assumption that the bicycle riders were the top of the society. And, obviously the janitorial, and there was a name for me. The name slips my mind. But these particular people, the people on the bicycles, like Bean's character, they could tell them what to do to clean up after them. So I kind of came out to me like they were the lower class, and the people on the bicycle were the higher class of society, because those are the people we had seen. And so it was under the assumption that, that's how it worked. It was maybe like this dual type, society. And I was kind of feeling that, kind of hit me that was weird, that that would be the top of the society, just some people riding bicycles every day. But then I said, well, if they're producing all the energy, then maybe their value, maybe the people. Also, I noticed that the people in the yellow were, they didn't seem to be in the best shape. Like maybe they wouldn't be able to ride the bicycles, right? So I was under the assumption that, that's why they had to, be janitors, because they couldn't ride the bikes. And so they was kind of like, in some societies, how you might have warrior class versus peasant class, or, the peasant class, the farm class, and then you had a warrior class, and maybe you have the politicians after that. But then there seems to actually be a kind of next level, because the other advertising that is playing is for shows that remind you of American Idol or X Factor. And I kid you not, there's, as you got to see, obviously in the show, that the one main judge on these type panels making our decisions seemed to be a spitting image of Simon Cowell. And I don't know if that's just a pointing to the not just the popularity of those type of programs, but how our culture has become so engulfed in them. And there is truth to that. I remember there was a time when many of these shows, and still is, if we turn our TVs today, there's several of these shows going at once. But you can't hardly get through a week without hearing about something about the contestants on these shows, and flipping the TV and you got these type shows on in some form or another that it's pretty much all over our airwaves, so can't pretty much escape it. And so in their society is actually a next level way to go, to go if you can entertain, or if you can sing, got some type of talent that would, be limited into this society, you can actually get off this bicycle and live a much better life. And found all that very interesting. And, just trying to put everything together here. But Abby, our character here, and, Daniel, obviously, or being, develops, an emotional connection to Abby. And he accidentally gets to hear her sing. He knows that she's very good, and that she should audition for this show that could put her in a better position. And she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to take his money he's earned. Being had become quite, somewhat wealthy from the death of his brother, and inheriting all of his, credits and various things. And so Being wanted something real. He wanted Abby to be able to, or he just for once he wanted something to be real, not this artificial, virtual, dystopia society they were part of. So he convinces her to do that. But throughout this entire episode, we could see that each individual, in a way, were all kind of accepting and locked into their mode of life, and that this is the only thing that they, for the most part, thought that they could ever be or ever achieve. So it's a story of a lot of people just being very not having really any hopes for the future, that really kind of being in their stations and staying there. And you have and it's almost like metaphorical to what we do see on shows like X Factor, where there are a few talented people that do break out and do become these great sensations, but for the most part, it's only like one winner, for the X Factor shows and things like that. And so this is kind of how this world is, that the people are very much aware of that, and they aren't trying to push to be anything else or believe that they can. And so being he does convince her to do this, but as we got to see, the world of or the setting in this American Idol type show, X Factor show, they are trying to keep people in their place and in their stations, and they're doing this by using this type of suggestive drug. And although they like Abby singing, they're more obsessed with the sexualization of Abby, the adult entertainment. They want her to go into that. And so we got to see that, they did get her to go into that, either by convincing her, to drink this suggestive drug, which was, a big part of it, to help them, remain compliant. And I believe it was called compliance. It's like a take on the cup, and it's almost like they're drinking a cup of compliance. So so it was very heartbreaking in a way, because here it is, she could sing, she's finally got her chance to break out, and they just want to over sexualize her, like we get to see in a lot of the music industry and a lot of entertainment industry, where you've had really talented people, but they've been sexualized, for profit, for money, things like that. And so their actual talent sometimes is overlooked because they, become these sexual objects. And so that's basically what happens to Abby. And now she's part of, this adult entertainment, situation. And so this, just destroys being, that was the last thing he wanted. And so Bing's just going crazy and being forced to watch this, because again, now he doesn't even have the money to skip past the ads, and they, were forcing him to watch it. And so Bean becomes, very proactive. He fights this thing, as we got to see, and he earns enough merits to audition himself. Uses this suggestion. He was able to, fake his way through the suggestion, drinking a compliance drink, and get there with a shard of glass. As we got to see, he had shattered earlier, that he had come in contact with earlier. And he's basically able to give this great speech, and it was a well acted speech. My thing is, I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, being played by Daniel Kaluuya. When the movie Get Out, where they were looking for casting, I'm quite sure that this performance and this had a very a great deal to do with getting him the part, because it's a lot of emotion put into this. It's very convincing, and I thought it was well done. And I really felt, that's the thing about the Black Mirror show. They do a great job of really making all this stuff convincing. It could be a different world, it could be a future world, but whatever it is, they have a way in the writing and the setup to emotionally grab you, pull you in, and you're like, whoa, this is, even if the setting is artificial, these people are very much real. And Black Mirror has, been able to achieve that quite well. So of course, we got to see Bing. He's threatening to kill himself, and he's just not gonna, live that way anymore. But the uh, the shocker, I guess, to everybody as we got to see is Bing does conform. He does conform. He takes the deal. He takes the deal as they offer him, the deal of being part of a streaming service, and that kind of reminded me, guys, of like what you get when in the entertainment business when some artists, some entertainers sell out, so to speak, and or they go mainstream and seemingly break away from their core audience for money and big deals and commercialization, right? And I do believe being in the scene, when they ask him what does he do, what's his talent, he just goes, "Well, I am an entertainer." And so that makes, that gets me to thinking, well, yeah, that kind of has that feel of, when entertainers are faced with these deals, these offers that they can't refuse. And so a lot of things just came to mind in this episode that I thought was excellent. And so we got to see, finally being with the origami, well, it wasn't origami. It was actually a penguin statue he had now, because now he seems to be of means, whereas before they couldn't even have physical objects. He had to have like a paper origami that could be folded up into a 2D object. Now he has statues. He's eating well. He's drinking real orange juice. And he has a much better picturesque view, much larger quarters he's occupying, and he can see what appears to be the outside world, and it looks like a well done forest, but it's broken up into a picturesque window. So you can't tell if it's just a screen with a really good high resolution image or if it's really the outside world. And it's kind of an ambiguous ending, kind of just like the first one. So I don't know if all of these episodes are going to be this way, where it's kind of left up to interpretation, kind of like the last episode, National Anthem. But in this episode, we're kind of left with, is there a real outside world that's healthy looking? And if so, why are they inside in these little small, tight, confined spaces? He has this penguin statue of Abby now. Is this a reminder of Abby, just the sense of the situation, or has he in a place now where him and Abby can be together in a better sense, or is that possible or not possible? I have no idea. Maybe, maybe not. But it's kind of left up in the air. What's going on with this? Has he just all the way? You went back on all of his, what drove him to get to this point to fight this world? Has he just point blank given up and just accepted things like people do in our world today in some senses? So I found all that very great show. Well done. I really like this one a lot better than the other one, guys. People have been telling me this is a great show. And I have to say it is. I'm looking forward to watching the next one. I do wonder if they're all going to play out the same, though. Is this the idea of it? I'm assuming from the title, it probably is. It's to leave us with this black, dark, negative type of copy reverse of our world, and reflect the realities of it, but in a negative copy of it. And so maybe that's how it's going to play out. But they are interesting done. I do like that they leave these episodes open for interpretation. I really enjoyed it, guys. And tell me what you think. Tell me if you like this episode. I'm going to continue to review. I'm going to move on to the next episode. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe. And until next time, take care.